Hello again. The most reliable indication of future success for any child remains the same today as it has always been. That is to say, it is directly proportional to the number of books in the home as he or she grows up. That's pretty well always been the case, at least looking back to the 20th and 19th centuries. This is more important than family income, ethnicity, social class, whether the parents went to university or anything else at all. It is the single most reliable way of indicating whether a child is likely to succeed financially and in other ways in future life, or to end up not doing quite so well, shall we say. This has always been the case, as I say, and it still is, but the implications have changed. This is because the great majority of children now think that they do not need books anymore and that they can acquire any knowledge they require from the internet. Schools encourage this. In British state schools, children are no longer issued with textbooks or told to research a topic in the local library. Instead, the teachers advise them to use Google. Even the set books in GCSE examinations are not usually actual books, but rather photocopied extracts and so on. Anything else, look it up online. There are two big problems with this approach. The first is, of course, that while working class children and all pupils in state schools have been persuaded that real physical books are no longer necessary, that's not the case in wealthier homes or homes where the parents are better educated or where the children attend private schools. In the homes of such children there are still plenty of books, which of course gives them an enormous edge in their chances for the future. In other words, the rise of the internet and smartphone has had the effect of increasing social and educational division in Britain. Children who grow up in homes with lots of books still have the advantage, and it's even greater now because almost all ordinary children have been indoctrinated to believe that books are old-fashioned and unnecessary these days. I make no comment on whether this has been a deliberate strategy, but certainly the effect has been that the children of well-educated professionals and those in higher incomes tend to have an advantage, and the advantage is often given to them simply because they have books in the home, whereas those parents who have taken all the ideas about the internet having made books obsolete, those that have taken that seriously, their children are hugely disadvantaged. Many homes with children don't contain a single book. Everything is done via smartphones and computers, including reading. This is one bad thing about the decline of books and libraries. Public libraries used to be described as the working man's university, but these days few people visit them because so many people have also grown to see books as pointless, and the idea of going to the library and getting a book out about, say, wildlife is not something most people under the age of 50 or 60 would do. Why bother when you can find out all about stuff like that from the internet? This leads us to the second problem with the decline of books, which is, of course, that 99% of what you find on the internet is either rubbish or it is at best unreliable. Kids researching, as they call it, a subject for homework, simply Google one or two words and then go no further than reading the first few hits. These may possibly be from sensible sites like Oxford University, but they are far more likely to be from places where there is no academic rigour, because of course anybody in the world can now set up a website for nothing and talk about anything at all. How does this work in practice? Okay, let's look at the idea that some mainstream scientific idea is flawed. Now, sometimes these things are called conspiracy theories or urban myths. Let's imagine one. Let's think for the moment about an idea that runs counter to received wisdom. What about the idea that AIDS isn't really caused by the HIV virus at all? If I Google that, in other words, if I do my research on the internet, I'll come up with literally hundreds and thousands of sources, almost all of them written by mad people. The case is quite different with books. Here's a book of mine which covers this very topic. It's called 9 Crazy Ideas in Science, and the subtitle is A Few Might Even Be True. Now, the cover's pretty lurid, and that title doesn't exactly inspire confidence, but let's see what we can find out about the information contained in this volume, to see whether it's really mad and not worth reading or not. Okay, the contents of the book contain some pretty loopy ideas. AIDS is not caused by HIV. Sun exposure is beneficial. Faster than light particles exist. Is this book just a crazy rundown of mad and unscientific theories, the kind of things that one can come across on the internet? Well, let's have a look at the publisher. Who has published this book? Okay, at once we see it's been published by Princeton University Press, who are an absolutely reliable academic publishing house. What that means is that the author of the book submitted a proposal to Princeton University Press, and they looked at it and they decided whether or not this would be a book that would enhance their reputation, whether or not it would be good for them, whether or not it was reliable, accurate and written by a sensible person, or whether it's the sort of thing that would damage what they're doing. Who's the author? Robert Ehrlich is Professor of Physics at George Mason University. Okay, he's not a complete loony at all. He's a Professor of Physics at a proper university. He has submitted a proposal to Princeton University Press, and they've chosen to go ahead with this. That means that probably when he was pitching the idea, the people at Princeton thought, well, this isn't completely loony. And so it proves, because although he goes through the idea that AIDS isn't caused by HIV and explodes it and explains why that's not a sensible proposal. Elsewhere, the idea that time travel might be possible, he concludes that although it's probably unlikely in the real world, it's not technically impossible. In other words, this is a sensible book, and if you wanted to explore the notion that AIDS is not caused by the HIV virus, that'd be an excellent place to begin. That traditional publishing process was how all our school books and textbooks were published when we were children, the ones that we used. It's what most of the books in libraries in this country are. They've been produced by this same process. It tends to be a lot more reliable than somebody just setting up a website. People who rely on libraries and bookshops are almost invariably better informed and more knowledgeable than those who simply look at their smartphones to find stuff out. The difficulty is, and the alarming thing is, that there's a great age divide here. As I say, most young people growing up think that all they need is the internet. Older people know that that's ridiculous and that you actually need real books as well. We've got a generation growing up that are really not particularly well informed and fall prey to ridiculous ideas very, very easily. And that's scary.